Hello and welcome to Growing Tech Fast, the Org3D podcast. Today I'm joined by Jackie Rousseau-Anderson. Jackie is CRO of blueconic. Jackie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
So Jackie, can you kick us off by telling us a bit about yourself, about blueconic, also what you're passionate about professionally as well?
Yeah. So like you said, I'm the CRO over here at blueconic, and we're a customer data platform. So helping digital transformation agents kind of unleash the power of their first party data. And I got here kind of through a path of data and analytics to the core, some intersections with kind of research and insights, and then go-to-market strategy. And yeah, I'm passionate about creating true customer centricity throughout the organization. I think it's really important and a buzzword that you hear thrown around a lot, but buzzword versus, core value and an actual part of the business are two very different things. So making sure that at least the way that we show up here at blueconic is true to that customer centricity.
Okay. So I understand that you've gone through a bit of a journey over the last year or so in terms of transforming the business's approach to sales. So can you tell me a bit about that? Was there a light bulb moment here that prompted you to embark on this transformational journey? Would love to hear more.
Yeah. So just about a year ago, I was sitting in the chief customer officer seat, and we recognized with our CEO at the time and our now CEO that what we needed to do was really create a unified revenue organization. So I stepped over into the CRO role, and we began the transformation process. So the first step was creating that unified revenue part of the organization. So previously, new business had been, within a sales organization, account management within the customer success organization. So we brought those two groups together along with our pre-sales team, and kind of created a cohesive team that was focused on revenue writ large, from both a new business, but also a retention and expansion perspective. So that was really kind of key moment number one, was putting the teams together so that the entirety of us together we're focused on revenue. What that means is, sales people are connected with the account management team. So we're focused on selling, deals that are customer centric and set our customers up for success, but also set the business up for success long term. And maybe not a light bulb moment, but I think more of like lighting a bunch of candles in a room and then recognizing once, the room is lit, like, oh yeah, like the way we thought the room looked is actually how it looked. And what I mean by that is, we had tried a few different approaches to sales, had some different profiles of leaders and reps and all of that. And then recognized that for the way that we show up for our customers and the way that we want to show up, as well as how we want to grow the business, that profile really needed to change and to look different. So once we kind of acknowledged, yep, okay, now we all see the room very clearly, we have the lights on, let's figure out what the best way to approach this is.
Interesting. Okay. So how does that look now then? So now versus a year, 18 months, 2 years ago, what are the key differences and changes that have been made there?
Yeah, so aside from bringing the teams together, we've also kind of rebuilt the new business sales team itself, and changed up the profile of individuals that we hire, where we kind of have those individuals located. We brought in a new VP of sales, who from an ethos perspective is very much in line with our mantra, which is, we have 3 pillars: expertise, partnership, and empathy is the way that we show up in everything that we do. It's, kind of what our team's focus is. And so we restructured under that pillar and then started putting, the people in place, the processes in place, and the technology in place to facilitate that. And that goes, through everything from how we compensate people to how we train them, the processes that we have in place. All of that had to kind of be either rebuilt or tweaked to support this view of how we want to show up.
And then this is still a journey you're going on, though, right? This isn't right.
Yeah.
We've done it. We've completed the mission. This is an ongoing thing, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely ongoing. We hired a whole bunch of new reps in like Q3-ish of last year. So they're still very much on their ramping journey and getting launched and successful. And if we're doing it right to scale the business, it should never be done, right? Just like our customer data journeys are never done for our customers, our own journey should be ongoing because we're building with the company as it scales. And so the way that we need to adjust our processes, our tools, our people, whatever, is going to continue to evolve. One of the maybe most challenging parts to this kind of transformation is, well, first of all, coming up with the strategy and being like, okay, here's what we're going to do. But then trying to implement things to make the change while also meeting business targets, right? So, at a very granular level, it's like getting the sales and renewals and upsells in while you are, restructuring your org, your teams, and then also building the processes and getting them trained and learned so that it isn't, just that we're doing it once or that we can do it one-off, but that we can do it in a repeatable and scalable manner.
Sure. Okay. So I know we've spoken previously, and you talk about how your sales team need to be true consultants, right? And I always think the phrase consultative seller is thrown around quite a lot. It's almost a little bit cliche now. But what does that mean to you? What does it mean to have a salesperson acting as a true consultant? What is that? Why is that so important to you guys at blueconic?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think consultative sellers or consultative sellers is thrown around probably as much as customer centricity or being a customer-centric organization. And it's completely different to say it versus to actually build a culture and a program and an expectation around it. And I think that's one thing that we've really spent a lot of time making sure that we are customer centric, and I focus on that one because I think it is very much related to being a consultative seller. We see our roles as sellers to be in service of our customers, to help them kind of get as much success as they can out of our platform and out of their digital transformations. So if you think of it through that lens of being in service of your customers, then you need to show up with knowledge and expertise in a way that is going to be helpful to them. Instead of, sometimes I feel like people talk about being consultative sellers, but it's like very surface level, and it's just enough to maybe have a cocktail conversation or something. And then you're like, hey, talk to this other person over here about the thing. But for us, like our reps, a lot of them come from experience with other customer data platforms or adjacent technologies. And we expect them to be able to bring value to the conversation, that they can, know enough about the customer's business, their challenges, that they have a knowledge of how our other customers are using the platform so that they can be those kind of agents to we like to call them soon to be customers, to say like, hey, I get the challenges that you're going through, completely understand in your business model, in your world or whatever, this is what this looks like. Here's how we've helped other customers be successful. Like, this is what I think you should focus on.
Sure.
For our technology, which is, might be different depending obviously on what you're selling and the sales process and all that kind of stuff. It's not only a complex sale because of the technology and where it fits in your stack and what it's connected to and all the stakeholders involved. Yes, but it's also complex from a change management and kind of emotional and kind of, business centricity standpoint, because if they're doing this right and using a customer data platform as it should be used, then it's driving transformation throughout the entire organization. And that part of it could be sometimes a little bit overwhelming and also kind of emotionally fraught, right? Because you're talking about changing the way people do their jobs or whether or not they have the same job that they had once. And so understanding that and being able to speak to that part of the sale and say, nope, we've got the expertise on this one. I have some, the rest of the team members that you'll meet across this process have some, we can help you out. That's totally different than being like, yep, I can mention, 3 things off the top of my head about your business and then falling flat after that.
Sure. Okay. So along this journey you've been going on, what are the wins that you've seen so far, and like, measurably, like what have you seen? What have the improvements been?
Yeah, well, as a private company, I can't give out all of the, intel, but
Sure.
we've seen marked improvement on our new bookings as well as our net retention. But for me, I think the most measurable wins, and maybe more of like a qualitative measurable win,
Sure.
is the number of times that we, closed a new deal or, helped a customer expand, and then we got the feedback that we won it or, they agreed to expand with us because of the technology and the people. So, that combination is
Sure.
the best win, where it's like, okay, yes, the way that we're showing up and the way that we're going to market is actually helping us win new customers, and they see the value in it. So I see that as an incredibly important measurable win. Also because we have this phenomenal customer success professional services department that can show up and make these customers wildly successful. So I feel like we need to set the bar on how we show up for these people during the sales cycle, because that's the experience that they're going to have afterwards too. And so we want to do those teams a favor as well.
Sure. That's great to hear. I guess on the flip side of that, going through change and transformation is not plain sailing either. So we're keen to hear the juicy bits as well. So what have been the pain? What have been the pains along the way then, and the headaches and heartaches?
Yeah, no, I think that's an important question because it's really easy to, kind of gloss over all of the parts and make it seem like it's like, oh yeah, you just make this decision, then it's up and to the right. It's not the case, right? There's always the ups and downs along that chart. And so I think for us, one is kind of what I spoke to before of setting the strategy, but then executing while also setting it up to scale. So, making sure that we were identifying the right processes that needed to be put in place, that we were getting them in place, but without, without impacting the execution completely. And, we changed over nearly our entire new business team. So that, takes it takes a lot of work, but it also takes planning to know kind of what that trade-off is going to be in productivity, right? Like if we're going to scale down the actual full-time employees that you have against selling, right? And then you're ramping new ones, you have to plan in your, fiscal accounting of how that's going to impact the business overall. And so we did that part and communicated with the board and had great conversations around that. But you have to be ready for understanding what those trade-offs are and when they're going to hit. So I think that's an important one too.
Definitely. And then obviously this has been about the revenue side of the business, growth, retention. So what about the other parts of the business? How have they been affected and impacted by the journey you've gone on?
Yeah. So EPE is something that, we've had as a cultural component since the beginning of blueconic, and something we really leaned into when I was on the customer side of the house. And so those core pillars have always been a part of every single part of the business. And so I think one of the most impactful parts is for the rest of the organization to finally feel like there's complete alignment across all of the pillars of the company. The other thing is that, 2023 wasn't the easiest year to be selling, anything, quite frankly. So we really kind of opened up the communication lines and had the awareness that revenue is a team sport. That was a key mantra for us all year. Like, our revenue org is doing the work to show up better for the rest of our organization. And also the rest of the organization is stepping up to support the revenue efforts. So what that meant was, having people from product or engineering or PS jump into, complex deals where we might need extra support. Also, we kind of went through this process going into Q4 of the management team looking at what was on their plate and saying, okay, here's the things that I'm going to put down in service of making sure that we meet our goals for the year. And here's how I can be in support of the revenue team based on their skill set and, kind of the skill sets on their team. And so I think that cohesion is really important because, sometimes you have sales orgs that are just kind of off doing their own thing. And sometimes, depending on the culture of the company, they can seem to get like special treatment, or, sometimes they're out going rogue and selling deals that then product and engineering is like, how the heck am I gonna, deal with this particular customer? You blew up my roadmap. Like, what the hell is going on over there? And that can really create friction between the overall organization. And then on the same side, sales teams can be out selling stuff and they're like, why isn't the product and engineering team listening to my roadmap? Or, why does professional services, need X, Y, or Z to do the implementation, whatever it might be. This revenue is a team sport view, and everybody operating under the pillars of expertise, partnership, and empathy means that we can come to the table and say like, okay, here's why we're asking you to put this on the roadmap. Or have the conversation with the customer yourself and figure out what is a priority and how we can meet them where they are. And that is, I think, a major unlock across the organization.
Definitely. So would it be fair to say this has been probably one of or if not the largest challenge in your career today, going through this transformation?
Yeah, definitely one of the largest. There's a lot of pieces, and I think going into 2023, what we expected to do was one thing, and then the reality of 2023 and the market and trying to drive a transformation, like there were so many variables that we just couldn't see sitting in January of last year. So absolutely. And an ongoing one, right? Which is why it's also fun because I love the challenging parts.
Good. Well, we're soon to be out of time, actually. But I think just to finish, really, I think I would like to ask you maybe what advice might you give for anyone out there who is potentially looking at moving into SaaS sales? Maybe they're currently in a slightly different sell, more of a consultative services background, something like that, or even just exploring for the first time. But what's the advice you'd have for anyone that's looking to get into SaaS sales?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. If we're being honest, when I was in grad school or even early in my career, if you have ever told me that I would be sitting in this role doing what I'm doing now, I probably would have laughed at you and like, yeah, you're crazy. I'm not a salesperson. Like, that's not for me. And I think the assumptions that a lot of people have around what SaaS sales and what being a salesperson in the tech world looks like is they're just that, they're assumptions. And the profile of what is needed to be successful in roles like we have at blueconic with technologies that are more complex is very different. So, reach out to your network, ask people, for insights and feedback, and take it down to the skill level. I've told this story before, but I had a manager who wanted me to move into my initial sales role, and I did in fact laugh at him. And then he kind of went through a checklist of the kind of skills that he needed for that role. And they were all things I could do. And so it was just that reframing of, what the role is and what you need to be successful in it. That was the unlock, at least for me. But sometimes that you need that from an outside resource. So tap networks, like talk to people who are in the roles, ask them what, is most important, and then don't be afraid to go for it, because I think the assumptions are just that, assumptions, and they can hold you back in ways that are completely unnecessary.
Definitely. Have you ever hired anybody from what you call a strange background, or is there anything, any standout people that you can think of that you've hired in your career that have maybe come from a slightly obscure background that you wouldn't expect?
Yeah, I mean, across my career, I think some of the people who come in from varied backgrounds are so important for building out a diverse organization. We talk a lot about that here. It's diversity of like thought and background and skill set that you bring to a team. Absolutely necessary, right? Because building a diverse team is going to make you more successful. And people who bring different ways of thinking, different experiences, help create unlocks in how you think about different problems. And I think people who have come from different backgrounds and had to kind of like fight their way up or into whatever role they're in now, either from a knowledge perspective or an access perspective, whatever it might be, have that, kind of like chip on their shoulder, or that like drive to prove and be successful. And that is a phenomenal addition to a team as well.
Definitely. Okay. Well, I think we are out of time now. So it's been really insightful. It's been really interesting. It sounds like you've been going on quite an interesting transformation, and it's proving really successful. So wish you all the success for 2024, and just thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Jackie.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Adam.